So this is a problem-based learning object that is going to be taking a look at authentic assessments. And here with me is Dr. Wendy Barber, and I'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself to you just very briefly.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be with you today and to generate some discussion through your PBLO on authentic assessment. I'm an associate prof in the Faculty of Education, and I teach the course Authentic Assessment in the master's program and also in the BEd program. So very passionate about assessment. Thanks for having the discussion today.
Thank you. So what we'll do is a couple of questions, have a bit of a conversation, and it'll just be a couple of minutes in length. So the topic of this problem-based learning object is authentic assessment. So can you tell us very briefly what is authentic assessment?
So there are many definitions of authentic assessment that have evolved over the years, but one thing we do know is that there are significant differences between traditional assessment, which is what many of us experience in K-12 and post-secondary, and the way that we're talking about authentic assessment. So the word authentic is really meaning the kind of assessments we do, the kind of learning that is surrounded about rich, real world type of tasks that take more critical types of thinking, more analysis, more picking out of the problems, and have very diverse outcomes. So that's one of the key differences. The tasks are noisy, they're ill-defined, and usually much more interesting to solve.
Okay, thank you. So can you say a little bit, so we need to have a little bit of contrast, I think. So can you tell us a little bit about the problems that traditional assessment methods have actually created so that we need to actually take a look at alternative methods as a means of being able to actually move forward?
Yes, traditionally we've all experienced the single row silent exam, high stress, high stakes kind of evaluation where we produce and reproduce the curriculum for the instructor, where the instructor has the power and everyone's sitting in rows, usually not much talking. This creates some kind of artificial conditions because the world isn't like that anymore. The world is much more complex than that, and we need to be able to connect those types of knowledge. We can't solve these problems just by using one content area. So we've kind of evolved to a position where we want things to be more authentic. We want students to be able to pluck knowledge from different areas, to be critical consumers of that knowledge and also creators of new knowledge by working collaboratively together. And that's a very different way than testing people in one-shot deals.
All right, last question. These ideas about authentic assessment are not new. We've got records in the literature about Wiggins, Diggins, and McTighe talking about these ideas in the 90s, but yet we don't seem to have full-scale buy-in or implementation of these ideas within our educational institutions. Why might that be?
Well, that's a great question, and we've been discussing that in our class. I think there's some systemic barriers to that. One is time. Teachers saying it takes too much time. There's a need for a significant role shift, so the teacher has to give up the power and control to a certain extent to have a more dialogue-based assessment, which can take a little bit more creativity, more effort. There's also the issue of grading. We still work in a merit-based system where the teacher meets out the grades and decides the final grade. So that's another piece. We have to get a little uncomfortable when we're saying, wait a sec, maybe the grade doesn't matter. Maybe it's the learning that matters. Now, how can we measure it in original ways? So I think there's some discomfort to get over, some certainly shifting in the roles of teacher and student as opposed to everybody being a learner, which I think is where we're sitting in a world where we can just Google things or YouTube it and find it out. Changes the role of who the instructor is. So there needs to be a more level playing field, and that makes people uncomfortable.
All right. Thank you so very much for giving us a brief introduction to the ideas about authentic assessment. And hopefully there's enough here to instigate the kinds of investigations that are going to be required to dig in and see what is this all about and how does it impact other educators as they're moving along. So thank you so very much.
Thanks very much.